This girl locks herself in her room every day, although the house is full of rubbish, but she can't see a single speck of dust on her keyboard. The first thing she does when she wakes up is turn on her computer. She hides in her locker at 9 p.m. and goes to bed on time, because she suffers from a severe social phobia. Her face is scarred from the fire 3 years ago. She doesn't want to be around people and never talks to them. She keeps a large lock on herself every day, even to eat. The girl only texts her mother what she wants to eat when no one was outside. Only then does she quietly take the food from the door. She likes the carefree and quiet life, but she also has two hobbies. One was to look up at the moon with her telescope. The other was to fill the emptiness of her life with fantasy. She often imagined herself as a rich person. She pretended that her life was exciting. Only when the air raid sirens sounded twice a year, she would only open her window to peek out at the world, looking at the motionless people under the air raid sirens. It was as if she was a little bird. She can't help but float. But as the camera slowly moves, she was taken aback straight away, for she found not far away on the isolated island, there was a man in pain. Before she could think about it, she immediately pulled the curtains closed. She rushes to hide in the cupboard. The man's presence caused her to become anxious. She was even worried about him. At night she looked again through the binoculars at the island. Seeing that the man was safe and sound, a long-awaited smile appeared on her face. Every day after that, she opened the window and peeked out to see him. She saw him pulling the boat as hard as he could, and she would put her finger out to help him push behind. Little did she know that it was the presence of this man, that he would change her life. This man inhales frantically with the plastic bag of fried noodles. He dreams of having a bite of fried noodles, but he can't eat it, because he was stranded on an island in the middle of nowhere. At first he tried to call for help, but his phone was too waterlogged to turn on. He had just seen a cruise ship drifting into the area, but the other man thought the man was saying hello to him. Seeing that this wasn't going to work, he had to think about survival for a while. To fill his stomach, he started to make a move on the island's pheasants. He made traps to try and catch the pheasants, but the pheasant was too clever. He could only eat the wild mushrooms on the ground. He brought a bamboo pole to try to catch a fish. Instead of the fish, he stuck the pole in his own foot. Innocently, he tried to climb a tree to get a bird's egg, but as soon as he got up there, an accident happened. He had to wash his hair with the shampoo he had just collected, but unfortunately, the shampoo seemed to be poisonous. No sooner had he washed his hair, the fish in the lake slowly came up to the surface. Now he could finally eat the fish. He thought he could eat these fish for a few days, but the next day the birds ate all the fish in the basin. He had no choice but to eat the birds, even though he was fed. He was still not happy, because he had found a plastic bag of noodles that morning. Now he dreams of having a bite of fried noodles, but on this deserted island, how could he eat it? He could only greedily look into the plastic bag. He inhaled the taste of the noodles, thinking of his childhood, the days when he didn't treasure the noodles. Helpless, he began to cry. One day he was staring at bird droppings. Suddenly a bold idea came to him. He thought that if the birds ate the grain seeds, the seeds would surely sprout. With the grain, the plan to make fried noodles would be just around the corner. With this in mind, the man immediately began to collect bird droppings, then he buried them in the ground, piece by piece, to make it easier to get down to work. He also made a pair of practical slippers for himself, with a scarecrow buried in the vegetable patch. His life was getting better and better. Little did he know that a girl who liked to play with binoculars had seen everything that had happened in the last few days. To say hello to him, the girl printed out a piece of paper. Just as she was about to open the door, she froze, because it was the first time in 3 years that the girl had left her room. She had never stepped out of her house, but in order to have a conversation with this man, she made her way to the lake. She threw the drift bottle in the man's direction, and the next day, the man actually received her bottle. The first thing this man does every day when he wakes up is to water his vegetable patch, because he is stranded on an isolated island. Now all he wants to do is make a bowl of fried noodles. The corn that he had been waiting for was finally growing. The man is thrilled, but as he continues to gather items for use on the island, he suddenly found a floating bottle on the ground. He opened it and saw that it said hello. Unbeknownst to him, the bottle had been thrown to him by a girl. Watching the man on the island, he kept sucking on the plastic bag of fried noodles every day. The girl suddenly realized the man's wish was to eat fried noodles. She immediately called a delivery boy, handed the delivery boy money. She told him to go to the island and deliver the noodles. The delivery boy had a hard time getting here. However, the man refused to accept it without even taking a bite, and the delivery boy came back with the following words: "The noodles are his hope for survival." He poured water all day and night, just to have a taste of hope, and the girl at that moment had forgotten what hope meant. The next morning, the girl opened the door of her own accord, and asked her mother a request for a seed of corn. It was as if the girl had found her hope. I don't know how long it took. At last the day of the man's harvest came. He prepares all the ingredients. The corn is stirred and kneaded directly into the dough. Then he rolls it out in a jar into a pastry. He takes the lid of the jar and cuts it into thin noodles. As he watches the boiling water roll back and forth in the pot, the man immediately takes out his long-held noodle seasoning. Trembling, he sprinkled it over the noodles, and so the bowl of noodles is made by hand. He takes out his chopsticks and carefully takes a bite. At this moment he felt a great sense of satisfaction. At the same time, He shed tears of triumph because after so much hard work, he finally felt the feeling of success. Happiness is always short-lived. One day the sky is suddenly gusting with wind. The man tried desperately to save the corn he had planted, but man is so insignificant in the face of nature. After a violent storm, not only was all the corn swept away by the water, even his boat, where he slept every day, was swept away. The rain washed away all the man's hopes. The next day he woke up. The girl peeped at the man as she always did. After a long search, she finally found him. He then proceeded to write angry words all over the beach. Just then 2 rescue teams suddenly appeared. The man saw this and ran, because he didn't want to leave the home he had lived in for so many days. But despite his desperate attempts to escape, he was finally pinned to the ground by a group of men. The man was pulled into the boat by the rescue team. The girl, too, seemed to understand the meaning of life. Without saying a word, she pulled open the door of the house that had not been opened for so long. She rushed outside in a frenzy. On the way, she found the man's flip-flops with mineral water left behind. She searched desperately for him by asking passers-by, but when she finally found him, he had already left her on the bus. As the girl is despondent and sad, the air raid siren suddenly sounded in the sky. All cars stopped in their tracks. When the girl calmed down, she immediately ran in the direction of the bus. Finally she caught up with the bus. Seeing the man on the bus, the girl trembled and said her name. At this point the two of them looked at each other. The man was moved to tears at this point. This film tells us, no matter how hard life is now, don't lose faith and hope in life. Just like the girl in the story, the moment she walks out the door she has already won.